Late 1960s. On the quiet and peaceful campuses of Michigan, young women began disappearing one after another. When some of their bodies were found weeks or even months later, the scene left behind was nothing short of horrifying. People thought a university student couldn't possibly commit such brutality. But the truth was far more sinister. His name was John Norman Collins. Some called him the co-ed killer of Michigan, while others knew him as the Ypsilanti Ripper. But what kind of darkness lay hidden behind this seemingly ordinary young man? If you found this story interesting, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest content. John Norman Collins was born on June 17, 1947, in Windsor, Canada. His family life was turbulent. His mother went through multiple marriages, and frequent incidents of violence left deep scars on Collins' young mind. Some sources suggest that, at an early age, he displayed red flag behaviors such as harming animals and bedwetting. Perhaps these childhood traumas were the first signs of the criminal profile he would develop later. But during middle and high school, Collins seemed like a completely different person. Handsome, energetic, and successful in sports. He excelled in football and baseball, earning achievements in various fields. He was popular among his peers, even considered a model young man. And as he transitioned into university, this polished image remained intact. But who could have known that beneath this clean-cut appearance, a dark and uncontrollable rage was growing? People who knew Collins recall that he often displayed emotional coldness and, at times, had sudden outbursts of rage. It is also claimed that he had distorted views about women. For instance, he reportedly had an obsessive disgust toward the menstrual cycle, to the point of making demeaning and offensive remarks about it. Researchers frequently point to signs of antisocial personality disorder or psychopathy in Collins. A lack of empathy, manipulation, strong persuasion skills, and impulsive behavior. All of these traits indicated a mind capable of extreme violence. It is said that his sexual fantasies revolved around control and domination. This was a chilling glimpse into the brutality he would later unleash on his victims. One of the most striking aspects of Collins' murders was that almost all of his victims were young women. He specifically targeted white women between the ages of 18 and 23, most of whom had dark hair and were often traveling alone. During that time, it was common for students around Michigan's university campuses to hitchhike. Collins would lure his victims into his car with seemingly innocent offers of help or approach them on his motorcycle. What drove him to commit these murders? Power and control. The increasing brutality of each murder and the victims being rendered completely helpless suggests that Collins had a deep desire for dominance. Sexual satisfaction. Many victims were subjected to sexual violence either before or after their deaths. The presence of cuts, foreign objects, and other disturbing details points to a sadistic need for gratification. Anger and trauma. Did a childhood filled with domestic violence and a lack of love lead him to develop a hatred toward women? Perhaps his past wounds surfaced as uncontrollable rage. No matter the reason, Collins' method of killing was nothing short of savage. The people of Michigan were left shaken to their core by the sheer horror of his crimes. In the late 1960s, forensic technology was still highly limited. DNA analysis was not yet widespread. So police primarily relied on blood type matching, fingerprints, hair, and fiber analysis. Collins appeared to be a clean killer, leaving behind minimal evidence. His victims often disappeared on rainy nights, and their bodies were later discovered in remote, rural areas, a factor that accelerated the destruction of forensic evidence. Body relocation. Many victims' bodies appeared to have been moved after death. Autopsy reports and crime scene investigations confirmed that the placement of the corpses had been tampered with. Eyewitness accounts. Some witnesses reported seeing a young man in a blue or gray car picking up women. Others saw him on a motorcycle. Since many young men around the campuses drove similar vehicles, this made the investigation significantly more challenging for the police. Organized or impulsive? Collins took his victims' belongings, seemingly trying to leave behind as little evidence as possible. However, in certain cases, signs of sudden anger or panic were observed. This suggests that he had a semi-organized profile, someone who was partially calculated, yet occasionally driven by impulsive urges. The first known victim, Mary Flesser, disappeared in 1967. Her body was found nearly a month later, so mutilated that she was barely recognizable. Shortly after, Joan Schell also vanished under similar circumstances and was later discovered brutally murdered. Even these two cases were enough to raise alarms among the police. The possibility of a serial killer was not yet openly acknowledged. As more cases emerged, the level of violence escalated rapidly. Victims like Marilyn Skelton and Dawn Basom bore signs of both strangulation and stabbing, often in combination. Some victims showed clear evidence of prolonged torture. The brutality intensified to such an extent that both police and the media began referring to the killer as a monster. Fear took over the university campuses. Students became hesitant to leave their dorms at night, and many women stopped hitchhiking altogether. The once carefree college life was now overshadowed by terror. They say every killer makes a mistake, and Collins was no exception. His uncle's basement. Collins frequently spent time in his uncle's basement. After one of the murders, hair and blood traces were discovered there. Forensic analysis confirmed that the hair samples matched one of the victims. The California connection. While traveling to California, Collins was linked to a similar murder, tightening the police's circle around him. Bloodstains and fiber evidence found in his vehicle suggested that these crimes were far from coincidences. Collins was arrested for the murder of Karen Sue Bainman, his final known victim. He was sentenced to life in prison. Although the other murder cases were never officially closed, both the police and the public strongly believed that Collins was responsible for all of them. Throughout the trial, Collins maintained his innocence, but the overwhelming physical evidence and witness testimonies consistently pointed in his direction. Even during the hearings, Collins remained eerily calm. But in the end, the jury had no doubt. He was guilty. John Norman Collins would go down in history as the co-ed killer of Michigan, forever remembered for the at least 7 murders he committed between 1967 and 1969. His family trauma, childhood experiences, and twisted pursuit of sexual gratification had transformed him into a ruthless serial killer. This wave of murders sent shockwaves through college campuses across America at the time. The hitchhiking culture among students began to be seriously questioned. Law enforcement agencies also realized the critical importance of coordinating investigations across different jurisdictions. Had advanced DNA technology been available at the time, Collins might have been caught much sooner. Investigators still achieved a major breakthrough using hair and fiber analysis. This case also served as a chilling reminder that serial killers are not always outcasts or visibly dangerous individuals. Sometimes, they blend in with society, hiding behind a friendly smile. Collins still claims innocence, yet he remains behind bars for life. His brutal crimes left behind devastated families and haunting memories. This story serves as a harsh reminder that not everyone who appears normal is truly as they seem, and that those in vulnerable situations must always remain cautious. The key takeaway is this: serial killers can be anywhere, in our families, schools, or workplaces, even among those we greet every day. Knowing this shouldn't lead to paranoia, but rather awareness and vigilance. The John Norman Collins case once again proves that even the most polite smile can conceal an unspeakable darkness. And sometimes, reality is far more terrifying than fiction. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.